Good morning. My name is Jason Coyle, Operations Section Chief for Southwest Area Team 1. Today is May 24th, and this is your operational update for the west zone of the Calf Canyon Hermits Peak Fire. Last night on the 209, on the document that we report up all of our relevant data once a day, we reported the acres at 311,252. Fire is 41% contained, and there's 2,957 people assigned to the incident. We did not get an infrared flight last night due to the weather. So clouds that are full of moisture absorb heat. The airplane is above those clouds, so when it tries to take pictures through the clouds down to the fire, they don't see any fire. So when there's complete cloud cover, like there was last night, then we can't get infrared. All right, before I go to the map, we've have some interesting conditions going on around the fire, and I just wanted to talk about the approach we're taking to be able to address these in a way that is meaningful for the long term. So there's three different kind of things to remember for me, at least when we approach these sort of problems. And the first one is to appreciate the context, and by that I mean it's not even June yet. So when I talk about some of these areas where we have fire that we're working to secure, but that there may be heat outside the line, that's part of the context. The areas where we don't have secondary lines behind that, behind a certain area, that's part of the context. The area where the fire has moved up to above 10,000 feet and has kind of parked itself, but that as the snow melts off of there, it may continue to move between now and the monsoons. That's part of the context. So making sure that we appreciate the context before we start to define the problem is important. As kind of a counterexample, if it was July 1 right now and we were starting to get high overnight humidities and it looked like the monsoons, you could see them starting to build in the southeast and pushing up through Ruidoso, and we knew in the next couple of days we were going to get wet, then some of the problems that we're looking at, they wouldn't have the same gravity as they do right now. So after we appreciate the context, then the next thing we need to do is define the problem. And then when I go around the map, I'll speak to those different problems, and then we need to develop an approach. So we can say a solution, but no, we don't always have a solution right away, especially in a complex environment, but we do have an approach, and that approach should guide us towards a solution. It should be iterative. It should be an approach that allows us to make adjustments along the way. And it should be one that is responsive and considerate of the environment that we're operating in and the variability that we may see. So with that, we will go to the map. All right, we'll start here on our PACE map, because it's probably one of the best ones to explain where the lines are going in around here. So starting at Martinez Pond, going up to the north towards the Luna Fire, east towards the Osho Ridge, back to the west, over our north perimeter there, and then towards 518, then down south towards 518 to where its junction with the 75 road. That is still our primary indirect line. All the work across the north side as far as the dozer line getting put in has been completed. Now they're beginning to move the heavy equipment in to create that shaded fuel break that I told you about, and that's going to be going on for several days. We did get we've doubled the amount of equipment that's working up in there yesterday. So now that we've got the number of the different types of equipment that we desire to put this line in, then we'll be able to give you a better understanding of like how long it's going to take, because we'll be able to see what our daily progress is relative to what needs to be completed. The fire line going down here to the south through Luna is ongoing, and then the dozers that we used to push this line in have been moved down here to where the old Amole fire was by the Amole campground. I think it's the 424 road, but I could be wrong. And they're going to start pushing into the east here, across this ridgeline towards Gallegos Peak, up through the Sardinas Canyon fire, and then they will tie in eventually with those resources coming out of Luna to the south. Over here on the west side of the fire, this line location is probably going to be moved a little bit more proximal to the fire, a little bit more to the east, based on additional scouting that was done we knew we had a piece in here that we weren't certain if we had the best line location. So while all the effort was going on this piece, which we knew was where we needed to put the line, we had crews in here scouting and looking to better identify that. So we'll make adjustments in future days to that line location so it accurately reflects where that line is truly on the ground. Dozers, I think we had 12 dozers in here working to pioneer, which pioneering is just when you're the first time going through something. So if you're working along an existing road or an old fire line, then you've got at least a little bit of a road bed to work with. Pioneering is just going through areas that there hasn't been a road before, so it takes a lot longer. So they're working up to the 462 drop point right there at the end of my pointer, and then they scouted, and we believe we have a way to take this ridge line. There's a small ridge line here off to the east and go into the fire. So give you guys the better view of things, I'm going to walk over to the blow up map. All right, so we'll start up here in Division Kilo on the blow up map. The Chacon Hello Well that we put in several days ago, a couple of them actually, is being used to support the efforts of those crews that have continued to work all the way around towards Martinez Pond. This is looking really good. Matter of fact, we reduced the number of crews in here today, moving those crews down to the west over there to the area by Angostura. And we think after today, maybe after tomorrow, that we'll be able to pull those crews off and get them to work somewhere else. An area along this line that goes from where the Durand Creek hits the fire's edge here all the way south to the 518 road. So you'll see here we have dozer line and then we have the fire's edge. We don't particularly like that. We'd prefer that the dozer line is immediately adjacent to the fire's edge. So one of the things that we're doing today is we have field observers that are going in there. The people that are just really good at mapping that work for the plan shop, and they're going to make sure that where we say this dozer line is exactly where that dozer line is, and that where we say this fire's perimeter is exactly where this fire's perimeter is. And then we'll continue to evaluate the reason why there's a difference. Now, if all the stuff where there's a gap here is because there's rock or there's no fuel, that's okay. If it's because there's aspen stands that have a lot of young green aspen and there's no mixed conifer there, that's okay. But if there's areas where the dozer line's here, the fire line's here, and there's heavy mixed conifer in between, we're going to want to pay more attention to those because we get hotter, drier weather. There's the potential of that stuff moving around in there, even if it doesn't show up on any, you don't see any smoke or it doesn't show up on any of our infrared flights. So we don't want to lose sight of this, because if we lose sight of this, then it has the potential of introducing fire up in this area. And obviously, everything we're working is to prevent that. So, all right, so starting from Angostura, we'll start between Angostura and the spot fire that's out here that we call Thumb's Thumb. Everything in here, which is Division Mike, it's about 4 miles from here to here as a crow flies. There's about 8 miles of edge. So the crews made about a third of a mile into that 8 miles yesterday. But one of the reasons that they had slower progress, or they made that progress, I don't call it slow or fast, but they only made a third of a mile, is because they were doing all the preparatory work to be able to engage en masse. And part of that was cutting in helospots. Part of that was taking some of these streams that run down here and using pumps. We call them Mark III pumps, but a pump that you're able to carry on a backpack in here, and setting up little dams, putting those pumps in there, and then running hose lines in off of the pumps, and use those hose lines to be able to extinguish the fire's edge. The other reason they only made a third of a mile is that there's a lot of spots. This is all just thick mixed conifer, and then it goes into some aspens down further, but they have to go in there and they have to find those spots, and then they have to dig out all the dirt around the spots. And mixed conifer, it's short needle, the duff, so the organic material that builds up underneath there, it gets thick, and when it's dry, it can hold an ember for a very long time. So they have to take that and go all the way down to mineral soil. So they got to get rid of all that organic material. And that's what they're going to continue to do all the way along this fire's edge and all the way along the fire's edge here. Down south of Thumb's Thumb, like I said, they're working to put that dozer line in that would tie this in right here. That would give us another area to operate from if this fire was to start to move. And then they're going to Oh, well, one more thing to say that they did do yesterday is at Helispot 462, right there by my pointer, they inserted 2 sticks of repellers. So 2 groups of 2 people that rappelled out of the helicopter and went in there and cut out that helispot. They're going to continue to do that kind of work along this fire where it's needed and where it's adjacent to areas where there's heat. So on this whole section of the fire, going all the way past the Serpent Lake trailhead and all the way down to near the zone break, it's not a matter of putting dozer line or hand line or any kind of line all the way around this whole edge. It's a matter of making sure that that edge is not going to burn anymore and that it's out. So how they do that, we'll talk about over coming days as they gain more information, but they will need to go all the way around this edge in one way or another and make sure it's out. Areas over here like between Hickory to Peak and where the ridge system turns back to the west to go to North Truchas, you can't put people in there. It's too dang steep. So some of that we'll have to monitor by air. We'll use aircraft and buckets, probably not today with the ceiling being as low as it is, with the cloud level being down as low as it is, but in coming days to assist with that extinguishment. So taking advantage of the day we have today to continue to put those helispots in and identify points of access so we can get in there and work those edges in the coming days. And with that, I believe that will end the West Zone's operational update. Thank you.